to talk about what development and strategy is as it relates to a law firm, and basically just kind of cover, how one would use strategy and development to optimize their firm. So one of the first things that we're going to talk about is kind of how do we do the first steps? Like, what is the first thing that we're going to do when we decide that we're going to apply strategy and development to a law practice? One of the first things that you're going to do is to determine what your goals are. Like, what are the goals? What is it? What's the problem that we're trying to solve? What is the goal that we're trying to get to, essentially? How are we meant to overcome the hurdle that we're at, or perhaps we want to grow, so the issue is growth, right? We're kind of stopped at where we're at, we want to grow. How are we going to overcome that? So that's the first thing that we're going to do, is to determine what the goal is. Where do we want to get to? From there, working with a strategist, one of the first things that we're going to look at is, where are we now? And like I said before, where do we want to go? What do we want the goal to be? Where do we want the end spot to be? And once we know what that is, as a strategist, our goal is to fill in the blanks in between where you are and where you want to be. So that's where we do our work. That's where the work of a strategist is done, is in between those two marking points, right? Because we're trying to get to a goal. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to spend some time generating ideas. We're going to work on, what strategies are we going to use to get to the end goal, looking at what resources we have available to us, and basically coming up with a formula, a recipe, so to speak, that we're going to execute in order for us to get our client to the finish line, to the goal, to whatever the achievement is, right? So then we get to work as strategists in creating the blueprint that you are then going to use to lift your dream, your goal, your, whatever the achievement finish line looks like, off the piece of paper that is written on, right? So we're the group of people that essentially help you to come up with that plan, that in between where you are and where you want to be plan. And then we move to implementation, where we lift the ideas and the content, whatever it is that we created, off the sheet and turn it into real life, right? So that's how a strategist works in terms of us applying strategy and development to a business, specifically to a law firm. And in bringing the goals and everything that we've now put on paper as a blueprint off the piece of paper that we've put it on, and bringing it into real life. As a strategist, one of the most important things for us to look at is the most efficient and effective way for our clients to lift their dream, their goal, from the blueprint to real life, right? That's the next thing that we're going to do, because what can sometimes happen is we can have a goal that we want to get to, but if we don't put an efficient and effective plan in place to achieve the goal, we essentially miss the mark. And by that I mean we end up spending 10 times the amount that we were meant to spend, which would then allow a profit to be made, or for revenue to be generated, or we use our resources up in ways that we didn't intend for them to be used, and then end up not having enough resources to fulfill the actual task and roles and what have you that needs to be done in order for us to get to the goal. So it's one of those things where you have to actively look and know what you're looking at when you're a strategist, looking at not only where you want to be and where you are now, and the blueprint, but also coming up with the most effective and efficient way for your client to be able to achieve the goal without breaking the bank, without running through resources, without wasting resources. And I'm actually going to do a video on just that, about resources as it pertains to implementing a business development plan, a strategic plan, because without being very careful and intentional about the way that the resources are used that you have allocated towards a strategic plan. It could be the best plan that you could possibly put together, but it can be a failed plan if you're not using your resources wisely or as intended to achieve the goals that you have set for you and your practice to achieve. And lastly, one of the things that we need to look at as we implement this plan is that we're constantly looking at results, looking at our KPIs, like, are we being effective? Are we performing as we said that we wanted to, as we intended? Monitoring. You will oftentimes hear me say in just about every single video, as you launch a plan, a strategic plan, one of the things that people oftentimes forget to look at is, the performance of it, and not just looking at performance, but looking at what needs to be monitored, determining what that is that you're going to need to be monitoring from the start. And then secondly, making the modifications as you move along the way. You got to make alternate decisions sometimes. You got to switch things up. Perhaps something that you've done, you're not seeing results from it, so you switch gears. So you are continually monitoring, modifying, altering the plan as you go, because the environment sometimes that you're in is oftentimes changing rapidly. It could be because of competitors, it could be because of the clientele, it could be because of the market, it could be because of the economy that you have to switch gears. A prime example of this is, just think back to when we were in the middle of the pandemic. I had clients that I was working with that had launched plans to start new law firms, and they had to quickly pivot and change the plan because the environment changed, the market changed, the way that people were doing business changed. But still, there was opportunity to do business there. There was opportunity for revenue there, but you just had to do it differently, right? So whatever the plan looked like, I'm not saying scrap the plan, but look at your plan to see how you can modify it, how you can optimize it and make it better, or make it work for a slightly different environment that you're in. Oftentimes people say, oh, well, I wrote the plan and I put the plan together and I launched it and it didn't work. One thing you have to remember, that when you're in this space of doing development, of doing strategy, you have to be prepared to pivot. You have to be prepared to make changes. The first thing that you do is not always going to work. It's that when you develop a plan, a strategic plan, it's based on the best known facts at that time when you're putting it together, right? And it's a starting point. And whether you put that starting point together today, 5 years from now, 5 days from now, the environment's going to be slightly different, because things around us are ever changing, evolving, growing, and just moving. So you have to be mindful that you might put together a plan and, in a short period after it's put together and it's finalized, things change. But that's the nature of doing business in any industry. It's the same as doing business in the law industry. So you have to be prepared to monitor your progress, modify what is happening, pivot. You gotta know that if you're really in this to win it, you're in it to achieve the goal that you want to achieve, whether it's starting a new law firm, or it's generating new revenue, or it's launching a new practice, or whatever it is that your goal is that you've put forward. You have to be in it to win it, meaning that you're not going to throw in the towel the minute it looks like you're not winning on your first try of implementing the plan. So putting together a strategic plan means that you've put together plans with the best information that you know at that period in time, that you are going to launch as quickly as you can, because again, if you put a plan together and you don't execute, the market's going to change. You're going to need a whole new plan. So putting it together as soon as possible, executing as soon as possible. And when execution, knowing that you're going to have to monitor, you're going to have to modify, you have to alter, you're going to have to move with it, move with the market. And being in it to win it is what you should be thinking. That should be the goal. That should be on your mind 100% of the time, because no matter what industry you're in, no matter when you launch, you're going to have to make changes. So never ever forget that when you implement a plan, you're in there to monitor, and you're going to have to modify. You're going to have to make changes. You're going to have to adjust as time goes on. So be prepared to do that, and that's how you see success in your plan. And a bonus point that I like to add here is oftentimes I get attorneys that say, hey, you know what, I'm really excited about putting a plan together to do X, but is it going to kill my billable hours like forever as I implement? No, it's not. It doesn't have to be that way. And what that means is that you are going to put in place the necessary people, the necessary resources to execute your plan. You don't have to execute the plan on your own, right? The whole purpose of you putting a plan together is for you to also have the ability to delegate some of these tasks and duties to other people. That way you're not having to do it on your own. One of my very, very favorite mentors, Myron Golden, talks about buying your time back. And this is one of those things, right? Where, instead of you spending time, for example, making social media content, or putting artwork together, you outsource that to someone or you hire someone to do it. You're buying back your time. So just to put it in perspective, say for example, your billable hour is $200 an hour or $300 an hour, and you outsource putting artwork together and it only costs $50 to put it together. You've bought back your time for a whole lot less, right? You've paid $50 and got back your billable hour that you can now bill a client for. So always remember that you doing a strategic plan does not mean that it kills your billable hours and it kills your time. What it means is you're putting a plan in place to grow, and you're also going to consider within your strategic plan who you delegate these tasks to, who you outsource stuff to, because there are tons and tons of vendors that are able to help you implement your plan, put these things together so that you're not bogged down doing it. So that's the video for today. I just wanted to jump in here and talk a little bit about what strategic development means for a law firm, how it's done, to give you some pointers so that you get a better understanding of how this works. And perhaps you might have a dream of something or a goal in mind that you want to achieve. And here's your video to push you to it, to be that motivation to push you forward, to move the needle just a little bit closer to you, taking that plunge into moving to the next step in your practice. Thanks for watching. Bye now.